You're listening to the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We now have a new challenge, perhaps the most monumental in recorded history. The opportunity to investigate a phenomenon that could change our destiny. A look at ourselves 1,000 years in the future.
We're going to examine and perhaps question some widely held theories of what may have happened to this Earth of ours. We're going to investigate some strange and bizarre events in the present, unbelievable happenings as fresh as today's headlines. And more important, perhaps, we're going to take a searching and scientific look into the future. We're reaching more and more out into space. Perhaps, as we may learn, someone, something, somewhere in space is reaching out to us.
Who the visitors are, where they're from, and what they want is unknown.
Bigfoot was attracting national attention and was now rapidly becoming the most intriguing mystery on the North American continent. Scientists and photography experts have examined the individual frames of this film and have come to the conclusion that the film and the creature are authentic.
Telepathy, psychokinesis, Bigfoot and black masses, UFOs and Atlantis, Kirlian photography, cloning, and cryonics. These subjects all have one thing indisputably in common. People want to know more about them. For mankind's future, on Earth and beyond.
Welcome to After Dark Radio with your host, Brian Alvarez.
How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez here on After Dark Radio. It is February 21, 2016. After Dark Radio here on the Dark Matter Digital Network every Sunday night, 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Today on the show, we're going to be joined by Seamus and Stephanie of the Thames Paranormal Society. From their website, we are the Thames Society of Paranormal Investigations. Our mission is to research, investigate, educate, and provide assistance to those who are experiencing paranormal phenomenon. Based out of Connecticut, we travel throughout New England and beyond in search of the supernatural. We conduct confidential and objective investigations. We strive for tangible, measurable evidence to provide our clients with answers. All services are provided free of charge. Seamus and Stephanie are going to join us today. We'll talk all about the society, ghost hunting in general, some of the techniques that they use, what they think is effective, what they think is not effective, and some of their favorite stories from various investigations. Seamus and Stephanie joining us here on the program today, the Thames Paranormal Society. There was no show last week. If you were trying to figure out where the new After Dark radio show was on the website, didn't have one. I hope to be doing shows every week from this point forward, but any day now, the baby is going to arrive. And obviously, if the baby arrives and I'm unable to do a show, we will not do one. Been a lot of preparations going on to get this baby here, so if you don't see a show, you might want to check my Twitter at Brian Alvarez. I'll try to update you if anything happens. But we are back here tonight and ready to go, and I will try to keep everybody updated if things change in the future. I do hope that you enjoyed the replay show last week on the Dark Matter Digital Network. Which reminds me, by the way, if you go up to the website, AfterDarkRadioshow.com, we have added the archives. You can head up there right now, AfterDarkRadioshow.com, and in the main menu, there's an area that says Past Episodes. And if you click on that, every show that we have done since we redesigned the website is up there right now. All of the After Dark radio shows, all of the Dragon King Dark shows with Carl Stern, they're all up there right now. If you want to head up there and check them out, AfterDarkRadioshow.com. In the main menu, Past Episodes. If you're just now tuning in for the first time, you want to hear some of the past episodes of the show, they're up there right now for free at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. All of our most recent episodes. Spread the word, let people know. They can head up there and check out whatever they have missed from either the After Dark radio show or Dragon King Dark. We are doing another double feature tonight. It is going to be After Dark Radio and then Dragon King Dark with Carl Stern. Tonight, he is going to be talking music that fits the supernatural, occult, science fiction, and mysterious. He writes, included in the discussion are Pink Floyd, Rush, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Deep Purple, Dio, Led Zeppelin, and many more. Music has long been used to invoke imagery of science, sorcery, and magic, from the dystopian space odyssey of 2021-12 to the mindscape sounds of Dark Side of the Moon to the sinister tones of NIB. This show is all about music for the mind. Who hasn't heard tales of supposed, real or imagined, messages hidden in legendary songs? Tales of space battles by Rush, madness by Pink Floyd, monsters and sorcery by Dio, and even maybe Satan by Black Sabbath. Music is awesome, and I hope you will join me on an exploratory tale through some of my favorite music of all time, a new Dragon King Dark, which will be up immediately after this show on the Dark Matter Digital Network, and you'll be able to check it out on the website, AfterDarkRadioshow.com as well. And of course, all of the past episodes of Carl Stern's Dragon King Dark are available for you there. In addition to that, we also this week have a new column by Mark Howes, the legendary airship flap of 1896 and 1897. Maybe you remember this story. It's a very famous story, in fact. I'll read the beginning of this, and if you want more, you can head up to the website and read the entire column by Mark. Towards the end of 1896, a spate of strange sightings began in the USA, which lasted almost a year then, and then just as mysteriously ceased. These sightings were of airships. Not so strange, you might think, except the airship was yet to be patented, and so had technically not been invented yet. The first such report came on November 19, 1896, when hundreds of witnesses, including the daughter of the mayor in Sacramento, California, saw a large glowing object drift slowly over the city. It was allegedly oblong, with tapered ends, and some claimed to have seen a canopy. One witness claims that he shouted to the airship, inquiring about their destination, to be told by the crew that they expected to be in San Francisco by nightfall. This would mean an average speed of between 13 and 16 miles an hour, which was the predicted speed of airships. The airship was indeed seen in San Francisco, but not for 3 more days. Just 4 more days after the sighting in San Francisco, a similar vessel was sighted 700 miles north at Tacoma, Washington, my hometown. Well, not really my hometown, but within 40 miles of my hometown. And a week after, it was spotted back in San Francisco by 2 fishermen who watched it land on the beach at Pacific Grove. The 2 fishermen approached the crew, but were not allowed within 50 feet of the airship. They described it as a 60-foot-long, cigar-shaped object, the same description used by startled witnesses the next day who saw the ship crash to the ground. There's a gap of a few months before the airship began again the sightings, possibly indicating that the airship was being repaired. And during April of 1897, the craft was seen by thousands of separate witnesses in Sioux City, Chicago, Missouri, Iowa, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, West Virginia, Ohio, where upwards of 3,000 people reported it, Kansas, and finally New York on the 30th of April. And if you want to know more about this mysterious airship, you can head up right now, AfterDarkRadioshow.com, a new column up by Mark Howes, and we will be archiving some of those columns as well in the near future if you want to go back and read some of Mark's previous work. We'll be working on that here very soon, so check it out at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. We also have this today. I love this story. I don't know what to make of it, but I guess very, very soon we may find out more. This is from the Huffington Post. Astronauts hear strange music while in space. Now, the actual headline, lost tapes reveal Apollo astronauts heard unexplained music on the far side of the moon. Earth and the far side of the moon, it says at HuffingtonPost.com, where the Apollo astronauts encountered the strange music-like radio transmissions. Keep in mind they were on the dark side of the moon. The crew of an Apollo mission to the moon were so startled when they encountered strange music-like radio transmissions coming through their headsets, they didn't know whether or not to report it to NASA, it has been revealed. It was 1969, 2 months before Apollo 11's historic first manned landing on the moon, when Apollo 10 entered lunar orbit, which included transversing the far side of the moon, when all spacecraft are out of radio contact with the Earth for about an hour, and nobody on Earth can see or hear them. As far as the public knew, everything about the mission went smoothly. Almost 4 decades went by before lost recordings emerged that revealed something unsettling that the 3 Apollo astronauts had experienced while flying above the far side of the moon. The taped recordings contained strange, otherworldly music coming through the Apollo module's radio, according to the upcoming Science Channel series NASA's Unexplained Files, just noted is going to be airing on the Science Channel. The conversation between the 3 astronauts indicated they heard sounds like they had never heard before. It sounds like, outer space type music, said one. You hear that? That whistling sound? Well, that sure is weird music. The unexplained music transmission lasted almost an hour, and just before the astronauts regained radio contact with Earth, they discussed whether or not to tell Mission Control what they had experienced. It's unbelievable. Should we tell them about it? I don't know. We had to think about it. Apollo 15 astronaut Al Worden says on the Science Channel program, the Apollo 10 crew was very used to the kind of noise that they should be hearing. Logic tells me that if there was something recorded on there, then there was something there. NASA would withhold information from the public if they thought it was in the public's best interests. The transcripts of the Apollo 10 mission were classified and untouched in NASA's archives until 2008, producing an ongoing debate as to the nature and origin of the strange sounds heard by the astronauts. We don't hear anything about anything, or you don't hear about anything like that until years after the incident occurs, and then you kind of wonder, because it's such an old memory of those things, that you get concerned about if they were making something up, or was there something really there? Because you never really know, Worden told the Huffington Post. If you're behind the Earth, and you hear some weird noise on your radio, and you know you're blocked from the Earth, then what could you possibly think? We've had a lot of incidents where guys who flew in space saw and heard things that they didn't recognize, and you wonder about all of that. I have a very open mind about what could have happened. It's somebody's hearsay evidence. It's only a visual or audio event, which is hard to pin down. Recollection is one thing, but actual proof is something entirely different. You can watch this entire incident unfold on Science Channel's NASA's Unexplained Files. A sneak preview of the 3rd season premieres Sunday, February 21st at 10 p.m., and the regular season returns February 23rd. Check your local listings. That from the HuffingtonPost.com. Make sure you check out NASA's Unexplained Files on the Science Channel. Coming up today, actually. I'll set my DVR for that one. In a moment, Seamus and Stephanie of the Thames Society of Paranormal Investigations are going to join us here on the show today. Are you a fan of the paranormal? Have you ever tried to do a paranormal investigation of your own? Maybe you can get some tips here from Seamus and Stephanie. From the website, we are the Thames Society of Paranormal Investigations. Mission: to research, investigate, educate, and provide assistance to those who are experiencing paranormal phenomenon. Based out of Connecticut, we travel throughout New England and beyond in search of the supernatural. We conduct confidential and objective investigations. We strive for tangible, measurable evidence to provide our clients with answers. All services provided free of charge. Seamus and Stephanie of the Thames Society of Paranormal Investigations joining us here in just a moment. After Dark Radio here on the Dark Matter Digital Network. We're back here on After Dark Radio. Brian Alvarez here. After Dark Radio, Dark Matter Digital Network. Very happy today to be joined by Seamus and Stephanie from the Thames Paranormal Society. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here today. And we'll start with Seamus. How you doing today?
Good. I'm great. Just happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
And Stephanie, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm very happy to be here as well, and I'm doing very well today.
All right, we're going to start talking a little bit about the society itself. I know that I believe both of you have had paranormal experiences when you were younger, and Seamus is the founder. I presume that's what led you to forming this in the first place. Is that right?
Yes, that's very true. Some of my earliest memories from childhood stem from experiences that I had in my childhood home. We lived in not an old house, but we lived on a house that was later built on farmland. And over the years, we experienced a lot of unusual occurrences and had seen sightings of a man in the house, numerous disembodied voices. I would even say it was a mimic. It could mimic, let's say, you were in my house, and then a few weeks later, after you're long gone, it could actually copy your voice and manifest itself in different ways. It really was a strange thing to grow up in a house that's haunted, you know. So, like you said, the group was founded because those experiences really shaped me and wanted me to strive to find out, get to the bottom. What's going on? So,
go ahead.
That's how I got started.
And Stephanie, what were your experiences like when you were young?
Well, I didn't have... I was always kind of interested in the paranormal, but I didn't have any experiences until I was in high school. And I had a very close friend of mine who lived in a house that was built in the 1700s. And, the neighbors had, reported claims before they had even moved in. And she hadn't told me about it before I had went there, but even the first night that I was there, I had experienced what sounded like a lamp being thrown across the room and smashing on the wall. But, throughout my time there, we were pretty close friends, so I would frequent there a lot. So I would see shadows. At one point, I was very, very upset about something, and all of my friends were, my friend and her sister, they were both asleep. She's not that much, different in age, so she would hang out with us as well. And it had squeezed my shoulder in order to comfort me because I was upset. And one of the neatest experience that ever happened to me there is I had went there. It was after school, middle of the afternoon. My friend worked at a local grocery store, so she was still at work. And I went there to go hang out. I was going to stay the night. And her parents had a second job of cleaning an office, and I showed up. They told me they had to leave, so they were, very comfortable with me because I was there all the time and allowed me to stay in the house. And I walked inside, went to the kitchen, grabbed a drink and the phone, was going to call a friend, and I kind of look up and I see a man, a full-bodied apparition, walk straight past me, an older gentleman in overalls and like a plaid type shirt. And I picked up all the stuff I grabbed from the kitchen and ran outside, and I would not go in the house until after, she came back home from her grocery store job. But that really kind of, made me a believer for 100%. And, when I found out that our co-founder, Todd Radley, I used to work with him, and he had said that they were looking for people. So I filled out an application, and I've been with the team ever since. And I've been there, I think, a little under a year after they started.
So Seamus is the founder. Let's talk a little bit about the society. The Thames Society of Paranormal Investigations is the actual full name, TSPI, which is apparently we're calling the hotline right now. So we can talk about the hotline here in a bit. But so when you founded this, had you already been doing investigations and they were sort of, I don't know if haphazard is the right word, but you just sort of doing your own thing and then eventually decided, I got to form an official organization here to do this? Or how did that all come about?
Well, it really started when I was younger and as a teenager. Like you said, it was kind of haphazard at first, dealing when I was a lot younger, kind of doing impromptu investigations, looking into things that on how to different techniques and what was out there at the time, and I kind of looked to the leaders in the field, and I read a lot of books on the subject and really got into it. And then I hooked up with kind of a hobby team, as you would put it, and I got a lot of experience doing things with them, and dealing with different cases and different type of thing. A lot of the stuff was maybe like going to cemeteries and things like that. But I got a lot of good experience. But what I got out of it was their approach kind of wasn't what I was looking for. Ultimately, it was like thrill seeking and that sort of thing. And sometimes they had a couple of home cases we were involved in. And what had happened there was really no follow-up. There was really no real thorough investigation. It was kind of for the thrills and chills, and I didn't really see the client being serviced and follow-up and really being invested in the process. So when I met Todd Radley, we already had previous experience. He had some experience similar to mine, dealing with hobbyists in the paranormal, and then at the time he was working security at a former insane asylum, which very cliche, but he had a lot of experiences there, and he had full access to this empty asylum, and he kind of crafted his techniques on EVP and stuff like that, and we compared notes, and we talked about really just getting involved in this and doing this the right way. Well, not necessarily what people would do other people is the wrong way. It's just we just want to do things differently. We really want to take a practical approach, utilize the best techniques we can. We really wanted to go in there and investigate and get to the crux of what's really going on, and really get some answers to the activity and why is it occurring and things like that. So
he was a security guard at a former insane asylum, or it was shut down, or what did he do?
It was a state-run facility that was shut down to budgetary reasons, and he had a part-time job as contract security there, so he had run of the whole campus.
So basically, they just wanted to make sure that nobody came in.
Norwich State Hospital in Connecticut. Now they've since torn down a lot of buildings there, but it's notable in our area in Connecticut as a haunted asylum. So,
and his job essentially was to make sure that after it was shut down, nobody was going in there and, I guess, doing paranormal investigations.
He would report on unusual occurrences, and he actually had a lot of great stories that came out of that, and he had some great EVPs actually out of the morgue area, which was really creepy. But
what were some of the things that he saw in there?
I don't want to quote him too much, but he had an experience where he was in his patrol car, and he saw a woman in a nightgown and bare feet walking down towards the waterfront, away from the campus, but it was still on campus, and she disappeared, and he was like, well, that's pretty extraordinary, and he compared notes with other security that were working. They said, well, there was a story of a woman that went down and drowned herself in the river, or was succumbed to the elements in the water or whatever, but she attempted to kill herself, and that was like a regular occurrence of this apparition actually happening on a regular basis, and he was able to witness that. So
I need to interview this guy, because I got another question for him. Maybe you can answer this question. Yeah. So if you're working security and you see what you believe is a ghost, now obviously if you're working security and some kids come in and they're trying to do whatever, you report that because that's your job as a security guard or whatever. Did he report his ghost encounters, or did he keep those to himself?
I think you talk about it. I guess being in the security field and things like that, I guess you're not really prone, because a lot of people.
You don't want to lose your job because you're reporting ghosts.
There's that element too. But in the security field, and I work in the public safety field, there is a stigma involved with people that do believe in the paranormal. And it's there's more and more. We had a retired police officer on our team, and they're more very like show me like exactly what you're talking about, because unless I see it, I don't believe it. So a lot of that, and you get a lot of retired cops in the security field and stuff like that, and they're very skeptical. So you kind of got to pick and choose who you talk to, and care to share these. Like you said, you don't want to go around being ridiculed because you think you saw a ghost. So
now, Stephanie noted that when she became interested in this, there was an application. And I know that you guys have got a blog, and there is a blog here written by Laura, who is an investigator in training. So there is a vetting process here at Believes, I believe. I guess Stephanie could tell me a little bit about it, and you can as well. I guess if I wanted to become involved in the society, what is the application about? What are you looking for? What is a red flag?
Well, yeah, we have an application on our website, so anybody who is looking to join, they can, fill it out right online. And we also have specific jobs that we are looking for. So what you kind of want to do is you fill it out, and of course you're scanning for things, and you're looking for red flags and inconsistencies and statements that seem a little bit outlandish, and of course you're going to be screening that, but it's just a preliminary, because after you fill it out, I mean, it's basic questions, of course, who you are, where you're from and that kind of business, and if you have reliable transportation, and can you commit, and, the normal job, questions that you would get in an interview. But, we asked you things like, how did you get interested in it? And, what do you think that you could contribute to our society? Because we're always looking for people who want to go above and beyond and do a little extra. And that's pretty much what that goes into. But after that's done and the application, is processed, James and I discuss if they could, be a potential fit, and then we go through an interview process. So then, we're kind of doing the background check on you. We're sitting there and talking to you in person, and we're definitely used to interviewing our clients and looking for certain red flags. So, of course, anybody who we are going to be taking on our investigations, we're going to have to do the same things. And after that, you kind of are in training for about a year. We have a few places that we frequent often, and we have, our little process, and we show them how we do things and how we control our environments and how we take readings of our environments, and we just sort of bring them through everything. And some of our members are more suited for, outside the investigation process. Like we have Marilyn, who has a degree. Marilyn Marin, she has a degree in marketing, so she's our PR specialist, so she gives us, kind of like an outside perspective on that, and everybody has like their little niche that they help like pull this whole thing together. But that's, basically the whole process of getting into our team.
Now, you mentioned you look for things that might seem outlandish, but when you're dealing with the paranormal, I don't know really what there is that might be deemed outlandish. Could you give me like an example of, man, we got this you don't have to mention any names, but we got this application and it was just too crazy for us?
There's a little bit of that.
Well, sometimes they will say one thing.
I certainly want
in a question.
Let's go one at a time. So Stephanie, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like sometimes you'll notice that like there's several questions that's not like a 1 or 2 word answer. You need to sort of go in depth. And I've had a couple applications where you'll find an inconsistency where they'll say one thing on one, and then they'll say no, they don't have experience with this in another. So that's kind of like, well, are you telling the truth? Because that doesn't make any sense. Like, for instance, I had an application that had to do with saying that they were familiar with the equipment, like how to use the equipment, and then in another part they said they were not familiar with it. So it was kind of like, are you just buttering me up to make yourself look like you're good, but you really don't have anything, you don't know anything, you're sort of lost, which, I mean, we're not completely opposed to just being interested in the paranormal and wanting to join our group, but, when you're trying to, like, embellish things and lie and that kind of thing, or, you'll be watching out for that. And then, I mean, you have other people who claim that they can see or do things that are so extraordinary that you're a little bit skeptical of whether
Seems
or
too
not
good to be
they're
true.
just claiming to do those things. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Seamus, go ahead.
Happens.
Oh, yeah. Just to build on what Stephanie said, what it really boils down to is that it's not like I founded the team and Todd helped me and stuff, and that there's some sort of I think leadership in the group is a necessary thing just for control, but and to keep things, organized. But it really is ultimately a team effort, and that I think it's important to have a diverse background. So, like I said, we had a retired police officer. We have somebody that's in the biology field. We actually have a psychiatrist, and we have people from all these walks of life. But ultimately, what it boils down to, they have to be an honest person, generally interested in the paranormal, and exhibit integrity and a willingness to work with others, and you could be anybody, but ultimately you got to kind of fit into that box to be part of our team, because it's a team effort, and we need all types of people to make it work and bring a unique perspective, because everybody's life walk is different,
Now, if you ran an organization that was more mainstream, there would be opportunities most likely to travel to places where you could attend a conference, meeting of the minds, and I know there are those as well. I mean, there was a Sasquatch summit up here. There's a UFO summit coming. Do you guys, I guess, how do you expand your knowledge base? Is it mostly just experimenting with what you're currently doing, or are there conferences that you go to learn more, or how exactly does that work?
There's a lot of different avenues for us to learn. I mean, we of course explore our own in new ways and techniques, but there's a lot of research that goes into it. I love to look at other teams and to see what they're doing and to network with other teams and sort of share, because we're one big paranormal world and we have so many great ideas that I always think that we should kind of band together and, teach each other. And that's one of the reasons why I love radio shows, because I can reach such a wide audience, just from this one little platform, this medium. And I just find that so great. So we absolutely love coming on these shows, because we feel like we can reach out to so many different people that didn't either know that there was a paranormal team, that there were ones in their area, because every state has them, or they just learned something new about the paranormal world in general. So this is a great way to educate. And I would not be opposed to doing any Paracons. I personally have not been to any, but I have watched plenty of videos that were, taped during a Paracon.
Seamus?
Just like I said, to build on Stephanie, everything she said is correct. And what I really draw inspiration from is that I look at what's going on as far as new advances in technology or things like that, not specifically dealing with the paranormal, just what's out there and what people are using instruments for and how they possibly could be adapted to what we do. That's huge for me. And that kind of keeps us fresh as far as maybe trying new experiments of trying to validate claims and gather evidence and data. But on the other hand, I go back in history, and you look at the early spiritualist movements where they were using different techniques back then, and some of those things are just as valid today. Some of them are absolutely absurd now, but there are some things you can look at, and just knowing history and seeing and looking for trends in paranormal activity and people's claims, and how we could be looking for that in the future. And then and then there's another facet that I like to look at is established people in the field and leaders in the field. And there's a lot of respected people dealing with it. I'm sorry, I'm getting quite loud in here for some reason. Yeah, but I like to attend lectures and stuff from notable people in Connecticut. We're fortunate to have a lot of great people near us that are noted in the field, like John Safis and Lorraine Warren. She's up there in age now, but I attend her lecture every year at Southern Connecticut State University and things like that. And that stuff really, gets your brain going and looking at their case files and where they've been and what they've experienced. And it really is an inspiration to kind of see where we can go from here.
Now, I've had many paranormal investigators on the show, and in terms of equipment, it seems that it is not universally agreed upon what works and what does not work. I've had people come on here and they talk about the spirit box, which is essentially you're scanning the radio frequencies very, very quickly and listening for a message. And I've had other people say, this thing is ridiculous. It's purely coincidence if you happen to hear a few words strung together. So that one is very controversial. What sort of equipment do you rely on? Are there certain pieces of equipment that, in your experience, you just feel this is a waste of our time? Tell us a little bit about the apparatus that you use.
Okay, well,
we have.
the basics.
No, go ahead, David.
Let's get down to basics. I'm sorry, Steph. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Just the basics. It's just audio recording equipment is huge. And I think most investigators you'll talk to will say gathering audio evidence is number one thing that you get. So we try to utilize different types of apparatus for recording audio. And then we have to document our process. And the more eyes you can get on an alleged scene of a haunting, the better chance you have of capturing some sort of evidence. So to me, anything to do with audio and visual is huge, because ultimately, if you have to show someone evidence, they want to either see it or hear it, and that's what it ultimately boils down to. Everything else is just cake, so to speak. So we do have other things, but what I'm saying, that's most important to me to have in your toolbox.
And then, when it comes to the things like the spirit box and the ghost box, we do have one, and we do use it, but it is what we consider experimental. It is not something. It's a theory. It's not solid, so we will never present it as solid evidence. We do show it to clients because it's interesting. And sometimes when we have things like if you're asking a question and you're saying how many fingers you're holding up, or can you name objects in your hand, or tell me my name, and you actually get a clear response, I would be more apt to show them, but I would tell them that this is not solid evidence that this is a ghost. Because I know there is the world in the paranormal is torn. There's a lot of haters for the television shows and the things that they do on there, and they're kind of like, well, that's a bunch of BS and a whole lot of bells and whistles and, just all, fun. And then we still take some of the instruments that they use, and we're trying to see if they do work. because how am I just going to take someone's word that they're complete bogus unless I experiment with it myself? And if I'm getting readings out of it and I am having other things that back it up, then I may be more apt in the future to say this could be something. But a lot of those things we're not, 100% solid on that we think that they're, the way to go. But like he said, it's the audio, the visual, that is what people want to see. That is what the clients really want to, that to them, that is more tangible evidence. To us, that's more tangible. And we love, our EVPs are our favorite things, always our favorite things. And of course, I'm a photographer, so, pictures are a big thing with us as well.
What are your thoughts on the television situation? Because there are more paranormal shows than ever, as far as like ghost shows, Bigfoot shows, they're all over the place. And at the end of the day, they're television shows. And they're designed to draw ratings and get renewed for another season. And so as television shows, you're going to see all sorts of wackiness and you're going to have people complaining about it. But at the same time, they are raising awareness for what you do. And I'm sure that you get a lot of calls because maybe somebody saw some wacky paranormal TV show and then they realize something's going on in my house. Who can I call? And there's the TCPI phone number right there. So what do you kind of make of these shows? Love-hate relationship?
Double-edged sword.
Well, both. I'm guilty. I will watch them from time to time when I see them on. I don't want to pick on any particular group, but I find, let's say, Ghost Adventures, for example, I find it hilarious. I know it's terrible, and I'm not making fun of
My son loves that.
Well funded, and he's got a good show. But Zach Bagans is hilarious to me, And we've all seen the meme of him saying, he heard hello and he killed Zach, and it's entertaining. And like you said, it is a double-edged sword because some people will say they look at it and that looks hokey, and these guys are running around in the dark. They look foolish. And you look at Ghost Hunters, and it looks like you got a half-hour or hour episode, and 3 days worth of investigating is crunched into there, and it seems so much fun because you just basically go and investigate ghosts and doesn't show you the work side of things, and so like you said, it is love-hate. I like to watch them just because they're entertaining to me. But as far as evidence gathered on it, like you said, it's TV, and TV's driven by ratings. And so you always wonder, do they actually capture something? What is this? And I'm not saying that they're not capturing things. You just don't know, and you just got to take it for what it's worth. And like you said, it is good because it is drawing attention to the field and maybe making it more mainstream where people,
the amount of teams
more
that
inclined
had
to
formed,
seek out an investigator because of the shows,
The amount of teams that had formed after the Ghost Hunters show came on, it was amazing. It was just like this thing, this wave just hit everywhere. I mean, we always had it. We just did a lecture during the Halloween season where we did a whole thing about, the history of ghost hunting. But I got to a certain point where I had to include television shows, so I started with One Step Beyond. But you were talking, you had that and a couple of other shows and throughout the next few decades. But as soon as that show hit, it was like there's more networks, there's more shows, it's everywhere. And there's people selling equipment on a regular basis where that was something that wasn't done. And with the digital world, everything's on the internet. So now there's a huge network that was, basically underground beforehand because you weren't, it was kind of unacceptable and strange to be into, the paranormal. And it's a lot more accepting now because it's everywhere. It's around us and we're all aware of it and we can talk a lot more freely than in the past. But it's just, it definitely has done a lot for us, but it's also kind of hurt our reputation a little as well.
It is kind of funny because I think about Finding Bigfoot, for example, which is not a paranormal show, but it's the same vein. And you get a guy like Cliff, who on television comes across as totally naive, and he believes everything is a Bigfoot. But here they are. They've now got 8 seasons, I believe it is. And if you put Cliff's name on the marquee, he's going to sell a bunch of tickets. And then when you go and see him, he's actually a very serious researcher, unlike what you see on television. So it's sort of like you kind of you have a show, you build interest, and
it's a two-pronged thing here. You know, the one face is for the public TV, and then another one is a serious guy that's doing some great research. Yeah,
I ended up writing a blog entry on the Haunted blog, TSPI's, our personal blog, about what it's like being a paranormal investigator, because the way the shows represent you is that you're right, like it's great and it's scary and you're running around and there's all these things happening and a lot of the times you're sitting there for hours and hours and hours, and sometimes you never have anything happen to you at all during. You may end up finding something later on a great EVP, things that you weren't even aware going on, but it can, even the evidence review, it's tedious. You're there for an 8-hour investigation. Well, you have 8 hours of handheld video camera footage. We have, night vision security cameras that we set up all over the place and keep them on for the entire duration. Plus, we have several, digital recorders that are going like during our sessions, plus ones that we just leave there all night. And then, we have entire photography sessions that we have to comb through all of that. So this is a huge process of just even the post-investigation. And then there's also the other part where, you're talking to historians, you're calling up libraries asking for information, you're looking through old microfiche and microfilm records and searching for anything you can, and it's tedious. It's a lot of work, a lot of work. And if you don't love doing it, then it's definitely not for you. But and
that's why we got a great team. Everybody's got a role to play, and everybody, when some people love the research and the history, and they love doing that, and we have the pre-investigation workups where you go and meet the client and you kind of sit down and hear their story and interview them, and other people love doing that part and stuff, and it's so great that we have. Well, we got a good-sized team now that everybody's got a great part to play. But in the early days, man, it was crazy because it was just me, Todd, Stephanie, and doing the bulk of the work. And it was insane. It was taking up a lot of personal time. And good thing I had an understanding wife that, understood that I really enjoyed doing this.
You
Otherwise,
look at
I'd be in deep trouble.
That's right. You look at the website right here, and if you go to the investigations area, obviously you're working a lot around Connecticut. And as I scroll down, New London.
Yeah.
Is everything in New London haunted or what?
Oh, it's a hotbed. You got to think right there. It's so thick and rich with history. Just the Revolutionary War time alone and how that was such a populated area since the beginning of our country. And then, then there's so much Native American history that goes along with that, too. So you're talking centuries upon centuries of just energy soaking. Oh, I love being in New England. It's so great. It's like we've had other radio shows who are paranormal investigators that the hosts are, and they're like, oh man, we wish we could be over there. That's the best place to go.
Let's talk a little bit about,
like Stephanie said, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The history in New London and Groton. And if you look, there's a few cases we did in Groton, and it's kind of coincidental that, when you see those Groton locations, they're all within maybe a 1 or 2 block radius from each other. And part of that is I believe a lot of it's connected to, like you said, the history of the area. For those that are not familiar with southeastern Connecticut, we had a Revolutionary War battle called the Battle of Groton Heights. And there was a lot of carnage, and our fort was taken by the British, and they massacred several Americans during the battle. And so a lot of those sites are, I directly correlate them to the history of that area and the turbulent times that it experienced. And some of the sites are directly related to the battle itself. So you'll see Fort Griswold. You may see Bill Memorial Library, which is actually, if you go back in time, the Bill Memorial Library was sitting on the actual fort site. So they're all related, really. So if you're seeing like a grouping areas, we have a good rapport with the city of Groton and a lot of these historic sites in Groton and New London. So we were welcome to do our research in the area, and that's why a lot of our investigations took place there.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the investigations. I want to make sure we talk about these before we go. You've got, obviously, many private residences that you don't publish online, but there are a lot of public places as well. Give us some examples of some of the best evidence that you have accrued in doing these investigations. What are some of the best things you've seen or heard?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to pick just a few. Each one has its own unique thing to it. I would say some of the best EVPs that we had were just so clear and unbelievable. Those to me, they were the most satisfying.
What do they say?
I'm sorry?
What do they say? What are some of the best phrases that you've heard in EVPs?
Oh, one we were in a historic place, and it was in Lebanon, Connecticut. We were there. It had direct ties to the Council of Safety during the Revolutionary War for Connecticut. A lot of things about security operations during the war took place in that building, and we just don't go in there, what's your name and stuff. You know, obviously we ask those kind of questions to elicit a response, but we get into like what's relevant to the location. So I got into a conversation, one-way conversation, at least I thought, talking about the British, and maybe it's some animosity there for them. And I said, do you like the British? And I got a response, I like their horses, which I thought was phenomenal. Like, you know, I don't like them, but they have some good horses. That really sticks out in my mind. It was clear as day too. That's up there in the top of my list. And I think there was one other one. There's a gentleman named Samuel Huntington, and people are reading their history. We went to his homestead in Scotland, Connecticut, and we received a response. And I asked, what is your name? It's a simple question. And we actually got a response that said, I am Sam Huntington. And for those of you who don't know who this gentleman is, he was the first president of the Continental Congress. So by effect, he was actually our first president of the United States before George Washington, the United States was formed, this early time in our nation. So those really like are awesome to me. I think that's great. It's almost, I feel like you're talking to the past when you get those responses. So those two to me are amongst my favorites.
Let me ask you something here, because you mentioned something much earlier about how there were experiences where, say that I was at your house and I left, and then weeks later you hear a copy of my voice, was the way you described it. Do you have a theory about what this phenomenon is? I mean, do you believe that these are ghosts of people who have passed away, or is it possible there's some sort of phenomenon that does, in fact, copy a person's voice and replays it at a later date, and it is mistaken for a ghost? What do you think about this?
I think those that are on both sides of that fence could be right. A lot of times, I think when we're dealing with some sign of intelligence where we're getting direct responses and we're trying to elicit that response, I think that is probably a spirit of some sort. some sort of entity. Now, on the other hand, those recordings and things like that, those of us in the paranormal field who are familiar with the stone tape theory, it's possible that moment in time was captured for whatever reason and is being replayed at a later time. And then there's those that say it's out there in the astral plane and someone's through time, and it's kind of like a time loop or a blurb on the map, and it just happens to happen in your house. But that doesn't happen everywhere, so you kind of gotta take all the factors into it and try to come up with your best answer for that. But try to answer your question, which is hard for me to pick one. I think it's possible for all types of phenomena to occur at some point. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And Stephanie, do you have any?
I don't think I can 100% say.
Sure. And Stephanie, do you have any thoughts? And do you have any favorite memories from any investigations you have done?
Oh, I definitely have some favorite memories. My favorite place is the Denison Homestead in Mystic, Connecticut. It's about 300 years old. There's a lot of artifacts that have belonged to the Denison family that is still in the home. And my particular reason for liking this place so much is I do, like I said before, I do photography. And I have this little process that I call the Cetera process that's kind of unique just to our group. And I caught what I feel is one of the best pictures that we've ever taken. And what I'm doing during this process is I sit my camera down in a stationary position and I make sure that my environment isn't changed. Like, where our investigators are positioned, making sure there's no light pollution, movement from outside that could be distorting any light that's coming in, those type of things. And I will take a succession of pictures and right in a row. And I will let the camera either soak up if there's enough natural light, or I will put one stationary light so I can sort of compare each of these photos. Now, in this particular case at the Denison Homestead, I was up in one of the bedrooms, and the first photograph that I had taken, you see what looks like half of a figure. I'm not sure exactly what type of figure. You don't see enough detail to really kind of get it. We've shown it to a whole bunch of people, and they're like, oh, my gosh, I don't know. I can't tell. It's very tall. But that, in my mind, sticks out as one of my favorite places, and I would go back there a million times to keep trying to recreate the same thing. If anybody wants to go on a tour there, they offer that. It's not a ghost tour, but we've done a public reveal with them, and so they're definitely accepting and know that there is activity at the homestead. So that's definitely my favorite.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the website and the hotline. And if anybody listening to this right now is in the area, and hopefully there are many people in the area, and would like to get involved, or maybe they've got something going on, we'll start with you, Seamus. Give everybody some information about the website and such.
Okay, well, you can reach us through our website at tspiparanormal.com, tspiparanormal.com, and there you can click on there, and you can find our contact. It says contact us. You click on that, you fill out a form, and most likely it will be me getting back to you. I'm usually the first point of contact. And also the phone number. I'm a little rusty with phone number. Stephanie knows it off the top of her head.
It's 920-940 TSPI is our hotline, and you can call us anytime you wish.
Yeah.
And we also have other places. Like we're on Twitter at TSPI Paranormal. You can find us on Facebook. We have, if you just put in Fame Society of Paranormal Investigations, You can find our fan page, but we also have a group page, which is called TSPI The Revenant Review, which is made for the public to post any of their evidence, any great articles they find. They can promote their own teams, their radio shows. You can promote your radio show on it if you wish. And plus, on our website, you can find our blog. This is the Haunted Blog, which we sometimes talk about our experiences, or we'll talk about different types of ghosts and et cetera. And you can find our TSPI store if we have really affordable, reasonably priced ghost hunting equipment and different kinds of books and guides of mediumship and basic ghost hunting techniques. And there's some stuff down there that's just for fun, like you can get yourself a Ghostbusters costume just because Ghostbusters is amazing. But that's about it. And if you want to send us an email, we are at tspiparanormal@gmail.com.
What could be easier? tspiparanormal.com is the website. The phone number, 920-940-TSPI. And if you're in the area or if you've got anything weird going on and you don't know who to call, now you know. The Thames Society of Paranormal Investigations. So check it out, everybody. And Seamus and Stephanie, I want to thank you so much for doing the show today. And maybe down the road we can do it again and play some EVPs or something.
Of course.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
All right. Well, thank you both, and best of luck with everything. And, of course, thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in just a moment. After Dark Radio, Dark Matter Digital Network.